Welcome to this special solo run through Sandy and Chris's newest video. Sandy Gardner and Chris Roberts are two heavyweights of the Star Citizen community, and I've seen them both in a video as a real treat. Hearing that they're healthy, happy, and having fun making a video like this is even better to me. And the content is nothing more than just an extra bonus. As a cherry on top. It's great to see them in healthy form and Jarrett with them hanging out, kind of supporting them in making this video and making content for the community. Now, I just wanted to mention that due to audio gremlins and Ash having to step away, unfortunately, this was supposed to be a co-hosted video, but in spirit, it still will be, but it will not. You guys are just stuck with me tonight, so please, folks in the audience, anybody who hasn't already seen Divisions, please click the link now. Don't even bother listening to me. Get to that link. Watch that video. Enjoy it. If you have, and there'll be a link below to Ash's main channel, and I'll put a card at the end. I believe in full credit on this stuff, and she helped me get through some of my audio gremlins that I've been experiencing tonight. So, in spirit, she's with us. This is going to be more of an informal run. Without further ado, let's check in with Sandy and Chris.
This should be the video. Hi, I'm Chris Roberts. Do you need to move us at all, or now are we good?
I think you could still slide a little to the right.
I normally would have had it cut by now, but I was leaving it to last minute before I go.
Oh, much better.
Well, on a Zoom call, you don't need to really do your hair.
Well, it's also,
At least you're wearing pants, though.
well, that's true.
That's helpful. Hi, I'm Sandy Gardner.
And I'm Chris Roberts, and it's good to be back in front of the camera after quite a long hiatus.
Yes, it has been quite the hiatus, and we've had a whole bunch of people working from home. How's that
It's actually about 720 now.
720.
Yeah, we had to move everybody. We did it in the space of a week, really, of March of last year. And luckily, we were set up in a way that makes it easier to do because we do so much collaboration.
I'll try to tie in some
different studios, and here in LA and in Austin and in.
I'll try to tie in some content for that. There was an interesting, all of a sudden, it was like basically a video that was supposed to be different for the community. It was one of the subscriber back videos, if I remember right, that literally just showed how they did things, where they were literally carrying the gaming computers and monitors out of their main offices, and then their IT team was left trying to pick up, how are we going to secure all this, vital information when people are at home to be able to cross-link in. I did also appreciate that they mentioned in that video, though, as they started setting up at home, those, hundreds and hundreds of staff, there's now up to, as Chris Roberts just said, like 720 plus people, was able to play online together. For the first time, they were forced to go online and play together through home links. So like literally their own home internet connections, and have to play across a spectrum. And instead of being able to yell across the room to your teammates like a big LAN party, you had to connect to the live servers, or at least test servers, and have to connect via home and have all the distractions of being at home and all the experience of playing the game at their home for hours on end. And that's a very interesting thing, because you're not developing the game for a LAN center with like the best servers in the world sitting in the room next door with Cat 7 cable running back and forth, or fiber or something. You're running the game for people's average internet connections, average computers sitting in a home environment, or at best a den type room or VR room that's set up for comfort to play games. And that's the best case scenario. So calibrating the game for that natural environment of the home is smart. And having the game where, you have to interact through the in-game services, voice comms that are probably separate from the game, and through other videos, they've shown that they use Slack and other technologies like that. So being able to use, I'd assume they also use Discord, use those type of services, just like players would, the community would. And that's a really cool, little thing for them to experience for a long period of time. Over a year, they were at home doing this type of gameplay. Just wanted to mention that. I'll try to tie in some video of them leaving with all their gear and such from that previous video. If I can
stuff
hunt it
and
down.
move out the office.
Because our studios are so spread out,
We lean on all the studios to help us a little bit.
Chris had started a conversation about what would it look like if we put everybody work from home. We're in a really good position as a company. The nature of how we work with 5 different studios, we're already configured for remote anyway. You know, there's a little bit of hiccup as people get figuring out what their needs are and if there's anything that isn't working quite right.
I think after a period of time of perhaps a little bit of weirdness of people just kind of getting used to the fact that they're at a desk, like maybe on their own or not around people, I actually think it's going to play out pretty standard.
For us, it was quicker than I think any of us had anticipated. We had estimated it would take us about a week to move everybody out, in an orderly process.
So it's been an interesting 2 days. You know, we've been running into all sorts of problems from internet speeds to data caps.
You know, and downloading 60 gig builds, whether that be a game dev build or a 3.9 branch or even the feature stream branch.
You know, our builds are gigantic, so if we have to pull them every day just to test new things, it's very resource complex. So we have to work around those problems.
Then we've got some VPN issues that we're trying to work out and figure out how we can resolve. And then from there, now that people have their families home, we're trying to work out how, if they need to take time off to teach their kids.
Yeah, Winslow and in Frankfurt, but you know, still it's a very different way of working when you're not all getting together in a room together for collaboration sessions or being able to look over someone's shoulder and look what's on their monitor. So it's been a challenge. It requires a lot more communication and a lot more Zoom and Teams calls. So actually we're
they're on Teams.
quite
They
looking
ditch
forward
Slack.
to getting back to the office, which whatever, fingers crossed, touch wood, is starting to be around the world. I think maybe here in LA and Austin will be 2 of the first places we'll start to get back to the office, but hopefully they're shortly afterwards back in the UK and the German office, because nothing beats working with people and seeing them face to face, and especially on a creative project. So like we can still get things done, but one of the issues has been, in terms of how well we close things out, it just takes a little longer when you have to always reach out to someone on a video call to ask about this, and you can't look over a tester's shoulder to see the bug on their screen, and if you're just riffing on ideas, it's in person makes a big difference. So I feel like we did a really great job all working remotely, but we weren't as efficient as we could be in closing it down. Whereas when we're in person, we're a little more on point on that. So I'm looking forward to getting back in the office and also just seeing people. I mean, it's nice to roll out of bed and not have to do much before you go to work, basically, but it's also nice to get out of the house and nice to be around other people. So yeah, I think I'm definitely looking back forward, and I know quite a few other people in the company are looking forward to getting back and seeing their friends and workmates and carry on with making Star Citizen and Squadron 42.
So inquiring minds want to know, we have a few questions. Where's 3.14 at?
Okay, well, it's
Just sorry to pause so suddenly, but I'd love to know where the questions came from. If this was a Twitch-based thing, I know Sandi was teasing this, I think, on her social. She has a Twitter account, and she's obviously very, very adept at running social media and promotions and such. I would love to know, though, where the questions came from and where the process was to get the questions. They really should have been on Spectrum, and they should have been on questions, like a voting list, so people could vote up the ones they wanted to put on there. I don't know, just a minor little point there.
Round the corner, I think probably middle of July is when it'll probably release. We're in Evercati right now. I think we'll be going to PTU in the near future, and it looks beautiful. I mean, I think we just released a Inside Star Citizen that shows off Ariason, which is beautiful, and it's got the first generation of the cloud tech in that we're still continuing to work on. That I think is pretty stunning, and it's going to get better as time goes on. Which is volumetric clouds, and it's a bit more of a challenge for what we need it for compared to, say, what you would see in Microsoft Flight Sim or some other games, because we have to deal with scales that they don't have to deal with. So, we can pull all the way back and sort of see the whole planet and have to see the cloud layers in a way that you wouldn't do in, say, Microsoft Flight Sim, and have it work as you come all the way in and fly through it. There's still some optimizations to happen and visual improvements and a lot of layering and detail and effects, but already I think it looks beautiful. It basically combines the rendering and the lighting all together with the atmospheric model. So we ray march through all the clouds, and we'll have an Ariason first, and then as we go forward, we'll start to roll it out on some of the other planets, and then start to work on dynamic weather. But that's down the road. But I think it's going to be pretty brilliant. And then Ariason itself, it's a floating cloud city. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only sci-fi fan out there that's wanted to step foot on a floating cloud city in person, and it's beautifully done by Ian Leyland and his environment teams. They've just done an outstanding job on it, so it looks beautiful. So if you haven't seen it, you can check it out in the Inside Star Citizen, or obviously you'll be checking it out in the PTU or in the game in a few weeks, 2-3 weeks.
We're gonna pause right here. I am not quite sure when they recorded this. So Sandi posted up, I think, like a week ago, what looked like this set. I don't think they would have brought them in just to clean test them and then brought them back again for the actual video. And I don't think they shot this over multiple days. I do think there was like pauses, like worse than my kind of pauses, but because they're trying to stitch it together. It feels a little disjointed in some places. It feels like the momentum and the vibe of the room changed. Maybe they briefed each other, or they talked about like, hey, we're not going to bring that one question in or something, or we added a question. I don't know what. I'm not trying to say there's anything hidden. And that's most of these videos you're listening to, if you've heard my other videos, some of them are stitched together as well. If there's if there's a car alarm outside the house, I'm not going to make you have to listen to that. If possible, I'm going to try to pull that. In this video alone, there's a tiny little image of a Google Chrome browser that popped up on my screen. I pulled that. It's just part of life. At the level they're at, with an entire team behind them, and literally Jared is like supervising that team, supporting the founder of the game and the visionary of the game, and one of the major hosts of the game from the history of Star Citizen's public facing. I would say, I'm not obviously commenting on their personal lives. I'm just saying like their roles. I would say that they're going to get it right, and whatever way possible, they're going to get it right. So every single thing is going to be well kept, and that takes time. So lighting takes time. Planning the set would have been time. They would have filmed this probably a week ago. So you're hearing him talk about certain things that were probably maybe not even done yet. Like, for example, Star Citizen Live, I don't believe is done in recording. It's done on the spot. Or Inside Star Citizen, I'm willing to bet that parts of it are already finished way before the video is done. I think that they piece it together like, hey, 3.14 is coming up. What's our latest footage from this specific team that does this specific thing? And I would wager they reach out and they're like, hey, we want to run this. Is this the newest stuff you got? Yes, it is. Okay, there we go. And now you've got that checkbox done. So just bear that in mind. Whenever you hear the newest, greatest thing being spoken about by a Pitler or Chris Roberts himself, just bear in mind, of course he knows everything going on, but this is Chris Roberts from, a week ago or earlier. It's not Chris Roberts from today. It's not Chris Roberts from this millisecond. So, just because he knows everything at that moment when he did the video and everything does not mean the script is even from a week ago. It might have been approved by him days before that. And I don't actually blame him for doing it safely. He has to have a clean presentation, even though it's informal and fun. he has to be very careful with what he says. His words can literally mean the difference between funding changing by millions of dollars different directions, and can change the course of investors considering the game, or Squadron 42 being picked up for advertising, or having a deal with Sony or whoever. I don't know. I'm just speculating at this point. But you get the point that his words matter. His words matter a lot. So I think anything with that weight behind it, they have to carefully scrutinize every single thing that goes into it. Just a thought. Anyway, back to reality. What we know this moment, not a week ago, not estimates from before the couple of videos, is Evo. He mentioned Evo is doing great. The builds are doing good. Directly out of Chris Roberts' mouth. They're coming out beautiful. And as progress comes through, and as we've heard through rumors as well, to confirm what he's saying, on top of what he's saying from a week ago, that builds are doing great in different testing phases, it will likely lead to a PTU, hopefully, if you're an optimist, by the end of next week. Honestly, don't expect anything this weekend. It is a historic thing. A precedent is there that the team that handles server patching and handles rapid development or hot fixes or something is kind of a skeleton crew on the weekends. And it is July 4th weekend. So in America, it's a major holiday. And a lot of their team down in Texas and California, those teams are not going to be at full strength all the way through the weekend until probably Monday. Probably Tuesday is when they're going to start working again. Full strength. I'm not saying like everybody abandons their post. I'm just saying, you got a maintenance team on there. So you're not going to go put PTU Wave 1 out on Friday. So I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. If you're listening to this on Friday, do not expect PTU to be rolled out. I wouldn't be surprised if we hear more momentum on testing through devs talking about it or whatever, and wherever else you hear information from. But I would be shocked if PTU came out this week. I'm sorry. It's just how it is. Maybe the end of next week, I could definitely see a PTU Wave 1, maybe even a full rollout of PTU. So we've seen a few times where they don't do a PTU multi-wave system. They just allow everybody access to the PTU, but for a defined amount of time. For example, Xenothreat being brought back in, being revamped, though, in the process, and having these economy tie-ins and all sorts of other crazy things going on. If they even do portions of that as part of PTU, they'll probably want to have that staged in PTU for only a couple days, get some data from a large group of players hitting it, and then get out. Basically, pull it back to normal PTU or something like that. Like, here's a revision without Xenothreat. We just wanted to get that data. And then maybe, next week we'll do it again, or something. I totally agree with his assessment that mid-July is fair. And remember, this is Chris Roberts a few days ago or a week ago or something like that. But still, his assessment of mid-July is definitely on track. And that's a fair assessment for, 3.14 rollout. That's only 2 weeks away now. We're in July 1st and going into July 2nd by the time we're talking about this. This is pedal to the metal time. But yeah, so I don't know. PTU to everybody by mid-July, certainly. That's certainly doable. And 3.14 outside of PTU, well, let's listen to him again. I'm going to rewind this slightly.
Check it out on the Inside Star Citizen, or obviously be checking out on the PTU or in the game in a few weeks, 2-3 weeks.
Sounds good. So this is actually quite a large question, but
And his environment teams, they've just done an outstanding job on it, so it looks beautiful. So if you haven't seen it, you can check it out on the Inside Star Citizen. Or obviously be checking out on the PTU or in the game in a few weeks, 2-3 weeks.
So his assessment, at least a few days ago, was basically 2 to 3 weeks that he thought when this video was going to come out. That's some meta stuff, isn't it? He has to predict what position they will be in when the video is released, when the video was done probably a week ago, and predict what it will be like in weeks later beyond that point. That is some meta stuff. You have to think about now, near future, and far future, I guess is lack of a better term, but like, obviously we use those terms in other videos a little bit different, a lot differently, but 3 different points in time, and all have to be extrapolated from each other based on your progress right now, progress you expect to get in the next week, and then progress that you're hoping to get based on that success in that week 2 to 3 weeks later. And I think he nailed it. I certainly think mid-July is fine. I have not pulled my punches on the Taurus SCU discussions. I have not pulled my punches on a lot of different things. I call it. I try to give the benefit of the doubt to CIG, and I also give them recognition where recognition is due. I think he nailed it. I think that we're going to see 3.14 if you're an absolute optimist next Friday. And if you're not an optimist, so just to be clear, I'm not talking about today, if you're listening to this on Friday. So I'm talking about July 9, 2021. And if you're not exactly an optimist, I would say July 16, 2021 being a solid PTU build. And when I say hit PTU, I don't mean like it went in and it's an absolute mess. I'm talking about a stable, nice PTU you can really dig your teeth into a little bit. But you might, the Xeno part of it, if they do add that as well, for testing, might be a short-term situation. Just it's the way that I think that would have to work. You can't have it constantly blockading economies throughout the entire, low player count PTU servers, especially once the first spikes of players leave, until the next patch is hit where they can test out new things. So that's interesting. We'll see. One other thing, spoke of Ash earlier. Keep an eye out for some content for 3.14, either through the PTU or right when live is, or in between those two. We're going to be doing some excellent, interesting collaboration work for both our channels during that time.
Sounds good. So this is actually quite a large question, but you can keep it short if that's even possible. Yeah. What's happening with server meshing?
Okay, well, server meshing we're working really hard on. We have put together
this is when he changed the name.
Biggest engineering strike team. So we have a whole bunch of the engine team that's working on it, as well as the networking team, led by Clive. So on the engineering team, we have Chris Balti leading up server meshing work, and Steve Humphreys is also contributing a whole bunch to it. And we have a whole back end setup that we're doing here internally, but also some of the back end services and connections are all being engineered partly up in Montreal as well with Turbulent. There's about 20 people, sort of mostly engineers, working on server meshing. So it's probably our biggest sort of overall technical initiative. It's super critical. I mean, we've talked about it before. It's sort of it's the bit of tech that will allow us to sort of open up, number of players, but also just sort of help a lot with, sort of our performance issues that we have. Because when we, you play right now in the game, you play in the live build and you're running around Stanton. If everybody's in one location, it's a lot better than if people are spread all over the system. And typically what happens is, as a server stays up for a longer amount of time, people spread out. You'll have people in Area 18 and ArcCorp, you'll have people in New Babbage and Microtech, you'll have people in Lorville, you have people flying around in space, you have people at space stations. And so the longer the servers get out, the more you got different actors and different entities that are all sort of come in around the star system. And as we build out the star system, more and more entities and objects get created. So we're going to have Arasan coming out with 3.14, and that's hundreds of thousands of new objects and entities that just come in with that. So if someone goes there, now all of a sudden that's hundreds of thousands of more entities and objects that the server has to simulate. So the key with server meshing is this is allowing multiple servers to handle different areas inside a star system. and even later stages of it, multiple servers working together to handle even one area, like an Horizon or a New Babbage or something like that, and allowing players to seamlessly sort of travel around and be passed under the control of different servers. So the authority passes from one server to another server as so on goes, and that allows us to have much larger amount of players in the same space and instance. It's also incredibly critical for transitioning to new star systems. So if you go for a jump point and you go to Pyro, for instance, we need to transfer you from the server that was handling you in the Stanton system to the server that will handle you as you enter into Pyro. And so we've already got a lot of the core features of server meshing because we've been working on for quite a long time. So the authority transfer, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's already been built, and we're building out the back end database, what we call the entity graph, that is going to sort of persist.
Okay. Wait. Server meshing from now on is going to be called entity graph writing. I don't understand why either. He will go into it a little bit here. I have watched this video 3 times in preparation for this. Well, actually, I listened to it one time riding home, and then I also watched this twice. But holy cow, there seems to be this pattern right now with CIG where they love renaming everything. So capacitors got rolled into power management V2, and now server meshing and iCache and everything else that we've been talking about for over, 7 years now that they've been earnestly working towards has been rolled into entity graphing as its backbone, where it will write everything into these graph technologies to be able to allow you to bring in and out what needs to be seen at any moment when a player's near it. I'm going to let him talk, but just understand that's what he's saying. He's saying when you will no longer hear specifically about server meshing and iCache on their own. They are mere components of this entity graphing backbone. Okay, I'm not a network tech. I am not an engine developer. But let's just stick with what we got here. I just wanted to be crystal clear what he's saying here.
To remember the state of every single entity and object in the world. So if you stream out an area, you completely remember the state where everything is, whether you dropped a Coke can in the middle of a forest on a planet, and that aspect of it, opens up obviously the persistence we talked about, which is great, but is also a fundamental building block for the server meshing. So we've been really working hard on that. We're making really good progress to it. I'm not going to promise any dates because it's by far the most technically challenging thing. I will say probably by the end of this year we should hopefully have the proper persistence in there that talk about the proper global persistence, which is this sort of streaming entity.
I love how she had that knowing smile.
Discussed.
He literally, I'm just going to pause for one moment. He promised her no dates, and then 5 seconds later, he's like, oh yeah, by the end of this year, I think we're going to have this. And she's just like, dang, he couldn't help it. That's when people know each other very well. You can see when they're co-hosting together. It's very funny to see those little nuances. So what you're about to hear is him explain the inventory system. I'm sorry if you're frustrated. Why do I keep pausing this? It's because there's a lot he's throwing at us right now. So basically, they're going to start with the player itself, your inventory on your suit of armor, or your mining clothes, or your backpack, some combination of whatever you're wearing. And then they're going to nail that down by the end of this year. And maybe they'll start working on like cases. So if you've ever been in the Crusader, the C2, M2, Hercules, on the top floor, there's those personal inventory bins. They're pretty nice. They're huge. And they run along the spine of the center of the ship. Right now, they're just like a generic drop bin, drag and drop, and they all share the same. It seems like they share the same inventory area. It's like 2,000 I don't know, some 2,000 SCU or some crazy. No, sorry. Holy cow! I'm gonna have a riot in my hands. I did not say the word 2,000 SCU. You misheard me. but there's these personal inventory storage credits. They're not SCUs. It's not a standard cargo unit. It's much smaller than that. But it is something that is important, and there's a lot of storage space on board that ship for things like pistols and guns. And he's going to go into explaining that you're not going to be able to carry an entire arsenal on your back and just stream it in whenever you need it. Oh, I don't want a shotgun anymore. I want something long range. You're going to have to carry that. You're going to need a suit that can support two main firearms and the ammunition for them and have all that equipment. And what you're going to start finding is maybe I want to have tools or medical healing units or second tier tractor beams and things like that to be able to do all these utility things. And you're going to have to sacrifice something to gain something. So your ship's cargo and your personal inventory are going to be super critical very, very, very soon. And that will eventually lead into other things like hangars and such. I'm going to let it run now, but just understand that when he talks about all this graphing and such, what it means is the game will remember where you put stuff anywhere in the universe, and you can go back and pick that gun back up unless somebody stole it. That is the end goal of this entire system, and it's starting with just the suit of armor on your back, being able to put a realized gun with no hand wavium technology, where you'll have to go in, set yourself up, and then go on your adventure. And if you don't bring the right thing, you don't bring the right thing. It's that simple. And eventually your ship will do the same thing, where it can store a bunch of stuff to help you, support you in your journeys, and truly start feeling persistent and give you that feeling of things have a worth, things have a value. You don't want to lose these things, and things you find are extremely useful. I'm going to let him talk, but it took me a while to wrap my head around it too. So I'm just understand cache, server streaming, all the different, even collusion is all tied to this new background database gridding graphing system. That's it. That's the gist.
Which is, the new version of what was being called the iCache before, if people are getting confused about that. But yeah, no, we're working really hard on it. We're going to have, this year we're not doing a physical CitizenCon because it just felt a bit too early coming back from the pandemic, whether everyone could travel or not travel. I mean, even now it's...
And that's very fair,
we're gonna
especially
go
to my viewers
UK,
from Germany, the UK. I totally respect that.
We're all vaccinated, but still, it's going to be a pain. And
I'd hate to miss out or have one of you crew miss out just because of where it's at.
We'll probably do a physical...
I'm glad that we're all on the same
footing. This year we're going to do a virtual one, which we didn't do last year just because, we're just sort of overwhelmed with everyone moving to work from home and everything. But this year we will do one, and one of the panels is going to be on server meshing, which will drill down much more onto the sort of details. The technical setup and details. But I'm actually quite looking forward to virtual CitizenCon, and I think everyone making the game loves to share what they're working on with everyone. So it's actually quite a morale boost for the teams. And it's nice when you do it in person because you get to meet people in person, and you can see how much people really love and enjoy the work that everyone's working on. But the next best thing is to do a virtual one, so that will be later this year in October. I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully you guys will like it.
Yeah. What else are you looking forward to in Star Citizen? In the hot seat.
Well, I mean, outside of the server meshing and the persistence, there's some really cool features that are coming online.
Okay, 10:46. Okay, bear with me for a moment. Stop. It's rewind time. We're gonna rewind for just a moment.
I have, this year we're not doing a physical CitizenCon because it just felt a bit too early coming back. That is going to sort of persist and remember the state of every single entity and object. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's already been built, and we're building out the back end database, what we call the entity graph, that is going to.
There. That is your new important word. When you're looking through the roadmap, we talked about that tool yesterday. When you're looking through the roadmap, when you hear a dev team drop that term, entity graph, think iCache, think server meshing, think streaming, persistence. personal inventory because it's not really practical until this is all tied together. And object collusion. So like when you don't see something, it disappears. It's all tied, at least vaguely and together, tacitly tied to entity graph on the server side, on the database. And I'm honestly going to grab this screen right here for... That's part of what I think is the most important factors. You just caught me getting a
persist and
bit of
remember
cover
the state of every single entity and object.
And that's
in the
state
world.
of
So
every
if you stream
single
out an area, you completely remember the state where everything is. You know, whether you dropped a Coke can in the middle of a forest on a planet, and that aspect of it, you know, opens up obviously the persistence we talked about, which is great, but is also a fundamental building block for the server meshing. So we
opens up positions, which is great because universal positioning is something that has been a hot topic. We talked about a minute ago about how you could put a gun down and you can go back to it and just find it under this bush if you knew right where to land or whatever, and you had maybe a bookmark or something. How does the server know the gun is there? Well, the server knows the X, Y, and Z of that exact firearm, but not just on your server that you did it on, any server in the lineup, because with server meshing, that is code for you're going to be pushed into different servers without even knowing it, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. In order for this system, in order for this game to actually work the way they want it to, they're going to need to be able to put a server for even each landing zone in some cases. So let's say you and your nearest 100 friends decide to have an origin day, and then 100 other guys that are Drake fans decide to crash it and have some fun and kind of troll yous or try to attack, and you guys got to duke it out, or at the very least share nicely a landing zones and have your competing ship show off, whatever. Well, what's going to happen there is that server is going to have to be reinforced. That literally like an entire server would be dedicated to monitoring those 200 different players and all their inventory and all their ships and all their crime stats and their communications between each other and docking and landing decisions and the player and the NPC guards of the place are going to be going crazy because they're going to have to check everybody's IDs and other things like that for crime stats and keep an eye on things that are getting weird, like people trying to do shipjacking and other kinds of crazy off-the-wall things. That's all going to be tied together into this graph system where if for whatever reason that server fails, ideally down the line what'll happen is it'll grab you and your nearest 100 and 200 close friends and enemies and move you to another server without you even knowing it. All of this needs to happen in the background seamlessly. So when you're logged into Star Citizen, you have an experience where you don't even know what server you're on. You may know the region. I mean, you'll probably always be able to pick the US versus EU or Oceania, etc. But what you won't get to pick is what exact server. You won't get to pick, I want to be on server 110 or something. There'll be these super servers that are entire rows and rows and rows of them. Both in their CIG hosted and Amazon backend hosted likely locations, and they will work together seamlessly. So much so you won't even notice, or at least the hiccups are so light that it's only once in a blue moon, and the system has you completely logged down to like the bolts that are holding the character together that you flew when you crashed. It can make you whole again. That's the goal. That's the real goal, is to be so persistent that if you DC, you can really log back in and you'll be exactly where you were and didn't lose a dang thing, unless you were trying to abuse the system, whatever, maybe it keeps you logged in, sitting in space for a minute, something like that, so other players can take advantage of that, so you can't just log out if you're in a PvP environment. So just some thoughts I had in my head about this. I wanted to go in depth. I think that's why you would watch a video like this. Otherwise, you just watch. Sandi and Chris, they work well together. They have great rapport building about different topics. And Chris's ideas are obviously the important ones. He is the visionary of this entire game. But yeah, I don't understand the push for CIG to constantly change the names and combine different ideas that we've had for many, many years. And makes me happy to make these videos. I mean, it's one of the reasons I do these things, is to make sure that the community has the information they desire and make sure that you're well informed about the progress of what you're backing. Just some perspective.
Well, I mean, outside of the server meshing and the persistence, there's some really cool features that are coming online. Actually, the next patch, so 3.15, I believe.
Pause. Remember, we are going into 3.14. So anything past this point on this set of topics is for the next set of patches. We are likely going to have, on top of 3.14, a 3.14.1. Oftentimes it's not announced, but they have to add in a secondary patch, or at least some hot fix patches that they sneak in there. Maybe testing out new volumetric tech, maybe finally releasing the dang space whale. Who knows? There is a great video that I did a couple days ago talking about the roadmap updates from June 30, which was yesterday, 2 days ago. But go ahead and watch that if you want to see a little bit more about what actually made it into 3.14 and what got pushed back to 3.15. Spoiler alert, virtually every single thing they promised in 3.14 is going to be there, except for the dang space whale, unfortunately. Poor space whale. So, yeah. And let's keep it.
Hasn't aired just yet. I don't know when we'll have this thing edited, so it may have come out and calling all devs or not by the time you see this, or may not have. But Richard Tyre is going to sort of go over the personal inventory and the medical gameplay, which is a big thing for 3.15. I mean, first the server meshing and the persistence. There's some really cool features that are coming online. Actually, the next patch, so 3.15.
Pause. We are going to 3.14. Likely there will be a 3.14.1 as well, as like filling in a few other things that we didn't make it to 3.14. That once again, they didn't. If the video on June 30, if you check that out, I have an update on the roadmap, what is absolutely locked in and confirmed. And spoiler alert, almost everything is. But anything that didn't make it or is close to being rolled out, probably cloud updates to cloud tech and maybe a few more services or requests for Orison. Those might make it. Who knows? Also, it's worth mentioning that sometimes they just do hot fixes, so they do them anyway, and then they still roll out a 0.1 patch. So 3.15, on the other hand, is even further down the road. That's 2 major patches. So the patch that we're talking about entering PTU, hopefully in the next week or two, and then live later on beyond that, would then be followed by that 3.15. Once 3.14 finally gets live and is hot fixed, or 0.1 or whatever needs to be done to make it solid, if it isn't already. But it's from what Chris said himself, it's pretty solid. We'll see. I think we're now talking about drifting into months from now before we even see it in PTU for 3.15. Just tempering expectations, but it is exciting stuff that he's going to bring up. And this all ties back into entity graphing. Remember that term. You will learn it well very soon over the course of these videos coming up.
I believe it's hasn't aired just yet. I don't know when we'll have this thing edited, so it may have come out and calling all devs or not by the time you see this, or may not have. But Richard Tyre is going to sort of go over the personal inventory and the medical gameplay, which is a big thing for 3.15. I mean, first of all, the personal inventory is sort of like another part of that proper persistence and the world behaving like it's meant to, where you don't have this infinite bag of holding where you have every single armor piece and weapon and clothes and you can access them all and equip all of them. that's not realistic. If you're running around out in the Sahara Desert, you don't have access to all the stuff. You just have what you can carry on you. So personal inventory is going to be about what you can carry and how you can equip that, whether you have something in a backpack, whether you have something on your suit, and it'll be just limited to what you can use and carry. It's also coming with a whole new way to equip your character, because to be honest with you, the PMA is horrendous. It's the most counterintuitive.
PMA.
It's a personal management app. It's sort of it's like how you currently put clothes on, but we never finished. It wasn't done properly all the years ago, and then we were always like, we're going to fix it up, and haven't got around to it. But we have a whole new way of equipping and doing it, which is much more a sort of paper doll, drag and drop setup, and it's going to be far, far more intuitive, far better, and will allow you to properly behave. Like, okay, I'm going to wear my civilian clothes now. Okay, I'm going to take that off, and now I'm going to put on my armor. But it will be limited to what you have around you, whether it's in your hab or in your backpack or you're right next to it, and it will make your behavior be much more like it would be in real life. So that's a big deal. And the other big deal is the medical gameplay, which is really the first stage of the death of a spaceman, which I talked about many, many years ago. And that involves allowing players the ability to sort of fix up and heal people at varying levels of damage, more so than we can do right now with a med pen. Also revive people, depending on the severity.
That wasn't me, by the way.
injuries,
That was in the show. They put that little
sort of
thing, as seen
respawn
also
mechanic. So
more
if you
recently in October
die,
2020, calling all devs.
You get brought back to life, in a hospital bed. Currently, there's been a slight tweak to a bit of the law, because I saw some people get quite upset about the fact that we mentioned that the respawn in a place away is now being sort of covered by the fiction of you've recorded your DNA and you're cloning. But the bottom line is, if you got atomized in an explosion on a planet somewhere, how are you finding that body to recreate the person? That just doesn't actually make much logical sense. So the kind of concept we would have is that you can only have so many times you can come back to life, which is basically you've sort of recorded off, you've taken a little bit of your DNA and you can grow a clone, but you can only do that 3 or 4 times. It's like having 3 or 4 lives. After that, you've degraded too much. Your DNA's degraded too much, and you're basically permanently dead, and your next of kin will sort of take over in the game, which is the sort of death of spaceman mechanic. So it's exactly the same as the death of spaceman mechanic that we had before, which was you had only so many lives before you would go on to have to pass on to your next of kin. But just scientifically working, it's all hand waving at this point, but it just sort of logically sort of makes a bit more sense, and also allows players a choice if they don't want to wait around to see if someone can rescue them or find them, because it may not be dead. If you die on a planet, or you freeze to death on a planet and no one's around to come get you, that's not a fun game experience.
When you froze our youngest daughter?
Yeah, it's not a fun game experience. You may want to just respawn back in New Babbage. But anyway, so it's the first stage of that. We delayed it a little bit. We could have pushed it to get it into 3.14. We wanted to hold it to 3.15, mostly because it's to do with the hospitals that you respawn in. If we had it in 3.14, we would only have 2 locations that would have hospitals, which would have been Arias and New Babbage. With 3.15, we also get all the space stations and Grim Hex, and the space stations are all, they're in orbit around every one of the planets. So even if we haven't got the Area 18 one or the Lawville one, Maria Pure of Heart, done just yet, they'll be in, I believe, the subsequent release, maybe the 3.16 one. Not sure. I'd have to take a look at the release schedule. But now we've got a place that no matter where you are, you can you would basically respawn where your home base is. So that was one of the biggest. And just to give them a little bit more time to sort of polish things like the UI and the experience. And that's kind of one of the focuses that we'll be going forward. Is it's a bit of a shift, but to try to deliver more final or more polished features rather than a very basic version that then you sort of leave for a while before you come back to it. So those are big things. The persistence at the which I mentioned at the end of the year, the proper full persistence of being able to remember where all these items are, which opens up having your own hab that you can store things, your own hangar.
Yes.
So we're going to have persistent hangars and persistent habs too.
Please bring back hangars.
I don't think we put those on the schedule just yet. They will be there shortly after persistence, but that's a big deal because then storage space and where you keep things and where you store things will be huge. And I think that will radically change the game experience that people will have. So those are
Okay.
all.
All right. Okay. All right. So we just dealt with a lot of rapid fire stuff there, but the biggest thing, and that's why I kind of harped on earlier, the entity graphing, and I went back a couple times with you, with everyone live, with all you fine folks live, because I want you to get that the first baby step here is getting inventory right, getting it so you can actually equip armor and weapons and gear on the fly without it taking forever for it to load. Or my personal favorite, you pop up in your Moby Glass, you pop in the entire suit, and you even see the helmet HUD, and then you go outside and you hear your person choking, and you have to run back inside the ship frantically because it doesn't have any oxygen. That's something to bear in mind here, that this would be a major step forward if you can just even trust that your inventory will be there when you need it to be, and your inventory actually exists. If entity graphing can create an environment where your armor and your backpack and your civilian clothing and your industrial gear, because I think he made a mistake not mentioning that. There's specialty gear just for industrial and environmental survival that is not just armor. It's specially made for dangerous conditions or industrial areas like mining and safely and such. If those environments can be embraced because you have the ability to carry around extra gear on your person for the role you're trying to do, like for example a backpack for mining that can fit a ton of stuff inside of it, and you can always trust that it will always fit the exact amount. And if you put 50 pieces of a material inside that backpack, you don't have to worry about logging off and logging back in and it's gone because it desynced or something, or it never went in to begin with and you just showed it was there but it was never really there or whatever. And then sometimes you pull it out and it's still there, or you go to sell it and it's still there, and you're like, oh shit, I don't want to get in trouble for thinking of people thinking I'm doing something bad here. Inventory has to be trusted. You have to be able to know every single time I put that piece of gear on, or I put that rifle on, that a weapon or a tool that I have special modifications to, an ammunition or mining crystal that's worth a lot of money. It's always going to be there. When I grab it, go. I go on my mission, it's there. Whether it be mining, whether it be defense, whether it be research and exploration, you need your gear to work. They need to nail that down. I love that he's focusing on something small, the player itself, the player's identity also, with the respawn system and the death of a spaceman. That's all part of the entity graphing. Being able to tie into the server every single facet, even how many times you've died. Something as simple as that is a nice step forward. I'm not against the whole entity. Oh, PSA on that. So anybody who's wondering, like, well, wait a minute, what happens if I die 3 or 4 times? My ships, my stuff, you will not lose anything. First of all, it's alpha. But second of all, even when you're in the live game, your LTI or your 10-year insurance or your 1-year insurance or your 6 months, whatever you have, you will keep. It is not based on your character. Even what's called lifetime insurance does not die with your character. So if you die 3, 4 times or whatever the magic number ends up being when they finally balance that out, and your hair gains that equipment, they will inherit the LTI. And when they die, the next one will. The next hair will, if it ends up being that way. And then when their hair dies, they'll inherit it. It will continue the chain forever. There is no way, as long as your insurance is still covered, you will lose it. And by the way, and one more PSA here for anybody who's really new to the community, a 10-year insurance is an amazingly long time. Do not feel like you've missed anything out on LTI. LTI is more of a bragging rights thing at this point, because it's 10 years from the start of 1.0 release, like the first release of the player universe. So it has to go through alpha, then it has to go through beta, And then, and only once it goes out of beta into full game, does the clock start ticking in real world time. So it's 10 years plus on top of the start of the game. So if the game is still in active development for multiple more years, and then and only then does your 10-year clock tick, you're still doing pretty good. Just bear that in mind. But back to topic here. You're not going to lose any of your insurance. The health insurance on your person does not impact your ships. It does impact your respawn. Interestingly, from what we're hearing through the rumor mill and from a developer discussion, we're hearing that the location of your spawn point will change based on your value of your insurance. Now, I suspect they'll give everybody the best insurance ever when you first start. So they don't want to hear anybody complaining. But eventually, you know, if you have not the best insurance, you won't wake up in your hab. You'll wake up in the hospital. And you may not get to pick which hospital you wake up in, you know, if you die and you respawn. I also don't think Death of a Spaceman is going to be completely implemented in the way that they're describing when like you walk the wrong way and you fall in a cave and you die. You know, like I'm kind of curious how they're going to handle this. I think if they do roll it out and fully roll it out like 4 times and you're dead and your hair gets all your stuff and you have to, you're just not going to have to be that attached to your character. Or another option would be save a template. I hope that there's templates, if there's not already, character profiles where you save the exact look that you like and just make your hair look exactly like you. And each time, just literally hit the load the template. The new hair just got made. So that's my thoughts on that. I'm not saying long term I'm advocating for ignoring the way the game's meant to be played. I am saying in the short term during testing, when you're going to die a half dozen times in just one game session, if you're really playing hard over the span of a full day of play, just from getting stuck and from players griefing you and from fighting, you know, in small ships where they blow up a lot due to dogfighting down to the death. Yeah, I don't think Death of a Spaceman is going to be as important as the game progresses into a real game. And hey, I'm losing armor each time, and hey, these respawns of these ships are getting more and more long in length and expensive to resupply the vessel and etc. That'll be different, but not for now. But this is all tied back to that entity graphing.
Very cool stuff. We're also working on, you know, the proper iteration of the cargo stuff. So a whole revised cargo system and that will be just much more.
He's talking about hangars and habs that are personal. That's coming down the line. That ain't 3.15 as far as we can tell.
So for the traders,
but that is also a lot directly tied to
God, the AI guys are working on some really good, cool stuff, and I'm gonna determine to make sure that in the game live server you actually see it, because really there's a lot of problems that come because of the low server tick rate. It's really quite frustrating, because in reviews I see fun behaviors, a lot more behaviors than there are actually in the PU right now, and it's a lot smarter. But you get into the live game like I did with my 9-year-old daughter last night, and there's just a lot of people standing on tables doing nothing. And
you got reamed last night.
Yeah, I got told off. I was told I should be embarrassed at my AI standing on tables. Because I mean the AI is actually
kids are honest. Kids are straight up honest, and they're some of the harshest critics you're gonna have. But you know what? It's great to see a father playing with his kids. It's great to see that gaming,
some synchronization things
in a positive manner,
the AI
like that.
System, like the streaming in and out,
continuing the community, continuing the community of the next generations in a healthy way. That's awesome.
Local,
so
the server one's
go for
the problematic one, because that has to remember state when it comes
girls,
in and out.
Girls getting into gaming.
Why the persistence I talked
once
about,
again,
the NT-Graph's really important.
Can't ask for a more
really
positive environment
all the state
than that.
properly. And
testing
right
out
now,
brand
we don't
new
remember
game
the state
founder of the game
as well as we need
dad.
to.
That's pretty.
We do
that's
need
pretty
it
cool
for server
for them.
meshing.
That's a great experience.
That is one of the reasons why
they may not realize it this minute, but I hope in the future they look back on it.
They were streamed out in a state like sitting on a bench or doing something, and then when it gets streamed in, it hasn't remembered that state properly, and that's how they stand on a table or a T-post. And it's because we're always streaming in and out stuff as you're moving around the world, and the AI, if we were not streaming stuff in, would be you wouldn't see a lot of the problems you see, but unfortunately we have to stream things in and out because we can't keep everything in memory all the time. So the global persistence will also help a lot with that. So there it is. That's a very short answer to what I'm looking forward to.
Very short.
Short answer. Okay. He just said a very important thing. Global persistence will help with this. AI is something we're developing. Even when things are not set up the way they're supposed to be, the AI will help. And he basically is suggesting and hinting that the AI is like the equivalent of that Coke can that he described at the beginning of this. A very simplistic view for me to suggest, but I'm just trying to keep this, for my own sanity, keep it simple. The entity graphing will mark every single position, and it will keep everything in sync across not only multiple players, but multiple servers. And it will remember where everything's supposed to be at all times across all sorts of different technologies. Streaming is the big one apparently for AI, and they have to nail this down perfectly. But also keeping the exact positions of where everything's supposed to be will help the AI find where its pathing is supposed to be and its behaviors are supposed to be. Like, for example, if a bartender is just loaded in, it has to like remember where all its stuff's supposed to be, what it's supposed to be doing, whatever. But if it's literally already set up and just waiting in the wings to instantly appear when you turn around and you decide, oh, I want to go to the G-Lock bar, and you're the only player that did that, it will instantly know where to be. It will instantly be at its start point for its bartender interaction phase. It will not be starting from cold. It will be starting from an aggressive position of its last known position, its last known work, its last known inventory options. Because remember, bartenders are actually some of the earliest inventory options we have, where they literally have different drink materials that they mix together and you can order. 3 different types of drinks, I think, at the New Babbage place, the New Babbage bar, in the middle of the Commons. So that's just an interesting little side note there.
And you code a lot at night.
I hope AI works
What are
out
you
because that's
coding
important for
at the moment?
logistics. That's important for gunners,
I'm
running
finishing off
ships
something
that are larger. So many things that
started,
impacts. That's just off the top of my head.
Mainly, I don't have that much
Law
time
enforcement,
to really do
pirating.
all the coding, but I'm trying to finish up the what we call physical skins. So all our characters in the game, the physics that you determine whether you collide is defined. They're on the skeleton. So skeleton has physical joint for like the arm and the hand and the head and the legs, but it's the same skeleton and the same sort of physics geometry for every actor in the game, whether you've got heavy bulky armor on or you're just wearing thin clothes. And actually most games are like this. In fact, a lot of games just have a symbol capsule that defines a character. But all our characters, when you see a helmet come on, or they put the armor on, or they put a jacket or shirt on, that's what's called a skin, which is just geometry that gets mapped to the joints of the skeleton, and then as the joints move around, the geometry deforms with it. The change is to enable the skins to have physics information embedded with them. So when you bring in the armor torso piece of a heavy armor, it actually brings in physics geometry that will define, that basically represents its shape. So as you put different things on, your physics shape and profile can change. And that's really important because that means first of all, better collision and hit detection. You could have a case right now where you have a big bulky helmet on, but the physics geometry is just the head size, and so a bullet could go look like it's hitting the helmet, but it doesn't actually hit the physics geometry. Well, we can change that now, so
common
the
issue in many
geometry is
games.
the same size as the helmet, and also it makes a big difference for things like physical interactions, like with cloth. So if I walk through like sort of hanging dangly plastic, if I've got my proper shape, then it will move out of the way where the visual render meshes, and the same for like if I have a cloak on, it will now drape over me properly, because right now if we put a cloak on the back of a character with a normal skeleton and they had say a heavy armor on, the cloak would look like it's going through part of the heavy armor because the actual base skeleton physics geometry is smaller than the heavy skeleton. So
We're good. Anybody who's ever played an MMO can understand that pain. of trying to put a cloak on or any other type of clothes or gear over a set of armor, unless it was designed to go over that set of armor. And then it's even more frustrating when you use a light armor or heavy armor, etc., or a stylized armor or something that does not fit exactly where that's supposed to bulk out at. It is incredibly aggressive for them to use resources to model a cloak or other cloth over different styles of armor, but it does not surprise me. There's one thing that has never surprised me is the depth that the team at CIG is willing to go, and Roberts' efforts to get this moving are admirable. Once again, I see this as a side project. I wouldn't get out the pitchforks about this. This is something that's nice, and it's something that's not going to consume an immense amount of his time. It's almost like a sub hobby, and he's not running the whole company. It seems like he has this on the side to have fun with. That's the vibe I'm getting, and it's something that actually betters the game, which is cool. So
you're saying you're making it more specific.
Yes, it's essentially just making it more accurate. It's
Sandy.
allowing for better simulation. It's necessary for like cloth and hair simulation, so you can make sure that the hair is not going through what
Come
looks
on,
like
Chris,
the
come
head,
on,
because
come
the
on.
actual geometry for the physics geometry of the head is smaller than the actual render.
Right, I
look is.
understand.
So I've been working on that for quite a while. It's been sort of something I've been doing in the background. So
it's a little project for him. He's having fun with it. That's great.
To go in and probably in not this release or the next one, but the one after that. They don't put
So
my code in right away. You need to make sure
3.15.
it gets tested so it doesn't blow everything up.
Yeah.
That's
We've
the
been
hardest
playing
thing
a lot
is
of
getting
games
code that works.
in the quarantine that we've had in LA. What have you been? We've been playing. They've actually been playing a lot of Valheim.
Yeah, well, I think we started off, I
Great
drove
game. Great game. Fun
9
and
and a
fun
10-year-old
open world.
daughter, we do together, Sky and Rain, who I think have sort of guest starred on an ISC once or twice or something. Not an ISC, an ATV maybe. So I, started out, we were playing Minecraft because our youngest likes Minecraft a lot, and then we were playing some Fall Guys and Fortnite.
Among Us.
Yeah, Sky's actually very good at Fortnite. We like won 4 or 5 straight
she's
games
really
together.
good at Fortnite.
I was just following her, and she was doing she had it totally down. It's pretty
Chris
intimidating
Chris
how
is
good
the feisty Valheim player.
well, no,
Yeah.
But anyway, so then more recently we started to play Valheim, at the beginning of this year, which was, really great. And it actually has some fun sort of balance and survival light style gameplay, which is,
I hope some of the lessons,
the longer term
pause for just a
survival light
moment.
stuff.
I hope some of the
crafting stuff.
the lessons from the survival world of Valheim, the crafting system, which is there's some depth to it, and also the traps and other types of technology in Valheim. If you haven't played Valheim, it has a lot of the Rust-like elements, but it's like, got mythological creatures, and it's not, so modern. But it feels a lot like Rust. I don't know why. I've had people say it doesn't make any sense, but play both. I feel like it's a Rust without without some of the other factors of Rust. Both are great games. I hope that he's taking some of the lessons and experiences that he and his family had during that, and he's applying them to the game when it comes to player outposts. Just wanted to mention that.
Stuff that we would want to do in Star Citizen and some of the stuff we've talked about. Actually,
Hey, there we go.
We've also played.
I
Star
promise I didn't
Yeah,
plan
we
that.
played Star
We played last night. Well, Chris and Rain played last night.
Again, that's sort of, as I was mentioning, usability and initial user experience. It needs to be far more obvious, and we do have again plans for that. But yes, it is quite frustrating to sometimes you don't realize you have all the knowledge of how the game works, and not if someone hasn't got all the knowledge, it isn't immediately obvious to them. Rather, our AI didn't stand on tables. That would be good.
And maybe the medical tech will fix. Our daughter froze to death.
Well, no, she respawned anyway, but yeah.
She respawned.
What else?
Good save, Chris.
We have some plans for next year, don't we?
Yes. So when we get back to the office, which is probably going to be a little later on this year. We as a family are going to move over to the UK for some time to be with the Squadron team to get it finished.
Yes.
So instead of being here in sunny LA, we're going to be in
Sunny Manchester.
Sunny Manchester. Yeah, I mean, with global warming, everywhere's
very sunny.
Everywhere's turning into California
Sunny.
It's
anyway.
not very sunny in Manchester.
So
Still, it's a nice place.
So whether we're doing it at the end of this year or the beginning of next year, we're definitely over there. We got some, the UK office. We're actually we're going to be moving.
Pause this just a minute before he starts talking about the administrative side of things for England and Germany. I do remember these things. Not that I'm cheating on the way I'm presenting this. Yeah, I did say it's an informal one. Do remember that he just said the words, I want to finish Squadron 42. I'm literally moving my family over to England for the time period to finish it by the end of this year or the beginning of next year. I think that's pretty telling, and it's quite obvious that next year Squadron 42 will be released, at least, and it's part 1. What do I mean by part 1 if you haven't already heard? So a while ago, there was a decision to turn Squadron 42 into a trilogy at the possibly, or at the very least, split it into multiple pieces. The idea was that it would be an easier way to divide and conquer and get a product out the door. So it is highly likely that we will get a part 1 of Squadron 42 as an entire standalone game, and then like a second, like a sequel, and then like a third possibly, depending on how they do. Remember, a lot of the content from Squadron gets into PU. I do feel that the PU should have more of a focus. I hope that after this part 1 gets pushed out the door, I hope the PU gets a little more love. I do understand they're symbiotic. I do understand that they're both great, important parts of the game. We'll see how that goes. And I am guardedly optimistic that after the first part of Squadron gets out the door, they can, really hammer some extra work on the PU and get the communities going, both for the new upswell of membership that is going to come from the players that just buy Squadron, hopefully, and they stay for the PU, and also players that are from the PU side that have Squadron as part of their game packages, or they're going to get an upsell for like $5 or $10 or something to be able to have access to it, that will be reinvigorated to come back to the PU. Please, CIG, capitalize on that wave. Bring the community to the next level it really needs to be at, and you're going to need the servers to do so.
Moving to new offices in the UK next year, which will be good because we're totally over. Our current offices are, they're not big enough for how many people we got in Manchester now.
Everybody knows that, right? That's not some spoiler alert, right?
No, yeah. I mean,
Okay,
we've outgrown it, but we've got some new offices.
We have multiple senior developers in the same room.
In Germany.
I mean, I'm glad to hear they're going to get new facilities.
We've got a
Great to
new
hear.
space that's very close to where the old one was, and now we're going to be in it's going to be a very cool place in Manchester, and we're going to the new offices will be hopefully they will be the new flagship for the CIG offices, and we'll have about 400 people there. And anyway, that'll be fun, and I'll be there with everybody because that's where the core of the Squadron team is, and so I'm getting over there. I'm going to be there on a day-to-day basis with them, getting Squadron finished out for you guys.
So yeah, this was supposed to be a short 5-minute video.
Yes.
We made a new.
I tend not to answer
Short
with
questions.
short questions. Yeah, or I don't give short answers to questions. Let me put it that way.
That's true.
Thank you very much for everybody, all your support over the past 15 months and the past
I thought you were going to say 15 years for a second.
No, not 15 years. Past 9 years.
Kids are in college.
Yeah.
I'm getting a wheelchair.
But no, it's I think it's the developers and the community. It's like a family.
Yes.
And it's great to build, and it's great to watch people play and have people excited by what is and what will be. And it's still fun for me all these years on. So yeah, I'm not saying it's not a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun, and we are really building a universe with unbridled ambition, which is, I think a privilege to be able to do for all you guys. So thank you very much.
It is. Thank you. We will see you in the
verse.
verse.
There you go.
I think it's clear that you missed this a little bit.
I bet she does. I think I didn't weigh in on that at all. That was beautiful. I've got a lot of feelings about the other topics in the video. I think it's a little premature to bring up 3.15, but I do appreciate that it is part of that. The parts they did bring up are part of the entity graphing system, which is what, remember, if there's anything you take away from this video, entity graphing is the tie-up of the iCache, server streaming, persistence, culling, object culling, ship culling. Everything is now tied into inventory of a personal, of your ship, of your habitation, of your hangar, your future hangar, is all tied into entity graphing as the back end, to be able to allow the servers to talk to each other and bring you over exactly you and exactly every other object in the world, even the AI. There's a lot that we covered tonight. Once again, in spirit, Ash was my co-host tonight, so please, please, please hit the stuff that's up on the screen now or very soon. That is at least hit up Divisions episode 1. Be sure to stick around for the bloopers. It's a fantastic show. A whole group of people put a lot of hard work into it, and you're going to have a great experience if you haven't already seen it. And please be sure to check out her channel as well. Ash's channel, link to her channel is below. And I would like to thank the viewers that stick around to the end of these type of videos. It's because of you folks that I keep making these. I feel that everybody should have this information in your hand, and it is something that is kind of surprising to me that the community is kind of getting a lot of curveballs thrown at it with 3.14. We've got the capacitor power management discussion, and then this today, the entity graphing kind of got dropped on us, which is taking many different cards from the roadmap. Heck, I mean, I've been along for the ride too. We've all been along for the ride. If you've been watching my videos or while I was making them, I mean, from both sides of this, we kind of got curveballs thrown at us where I covered every single one of these things, and then now we're seeing that they're all tied into this entity graphing, and it's all got to be locked behind that. So it is kind of something that's bittersweet. 3.14 is bittersweet. You have a brand new landing zone that is very exciting. That's going to be a whole new location that has a lot of potential, especially if the Javelin and the Hull DE can land there. But I digress. Topic for another day. That upper atmosphere location. You have the Taurus coming in. You have, finally, we'll get the answers from that. You have some great new pressure mechanics that will apply to water as well down the line, and possibly parts of, other systems. You have the grassroots of a rumored micro jump point to test new jump drive mechanics, possibly in 3.14 or 3.141 if the rumors are to be believed. There's a lot of exciting things. Even just the confirmed list, it really gives you a lot to look at. And the lore team has been in overdrive getting kind of fleshing out this, not just the Stanton lore, but also all the way out to Nyx and Pyro, some of the more exciting things. And the EU team bringing up refinery ships and how refining is going to be done in the Starfarers, for example, in the Starfarer G and other ships they keep alluding to. They're specifically not targeting the Starfarer. There's other refinery ships. They just might not be in 3.14. So there's a lot of building blocks being put in. And that's not even talking about the UI, the missile tech, and once again, power management. There's a lot here. There's a lot to go through. I'll be here with you the whole way. please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, even if it's just feedback on changes to this. Hey, I don't like this, or hey, what did you mean by that? Always remember, you can hit me up on Discord if you want to privately talk. I gladly answer any questions or feedback, and I'll see you all in the next one.